The story of the passion of Jesus and the crucifixion of him is a story that's filled with all kinds of ironic and contradictory information. There are ways that he is crowned, but he's crowned with a crown of thorns. He has had a purple robe put on him, but it's not his own. They come and they walk around him and seem to worship him, but the way that they finally worship him, the soldiers do, is by striking him on the face while he's blindfolded, even though they are bowing down before him at the same time. And so we get, in the very last moment when Jesus finally gets to the cross, the ultimate in contradictions. We get to see that the thing that he is the hope of all people is also the thing that he is accused of being and should be put to death for. The hope that all of the followers of Jesus have had to this moment is that he is the Messiah, the King of the Jews. And they've been following him around for 3 years, proclaiming this fact. But that hope that they have, that Jesus' kingship will set them free, also becomes the thing that puts Jesus on the cross. And every time, you may have heard this before, the reason there is a sign above him saying that he's the King of the Jews is because that is what he is sentenced. Just like the two men on either side have sentences written above their heads that probably say thief or murderer, the crime against Jesus is that he is the king. And people are walking by and looking up at the king as he dies, yet another kind of ironic image. They should be looking up at a king that is doing something other than dying. But even more ironic is in this moment, one of these other contradictory things is that Jesus, when he is put on the cross, he does something that we would consider very unking-like. And that is he forgives people, or he asks the Father, more technically, to forgive the people that are there crucifying him. Now, I want you to know that I think that what's going on here, and what I believe is so contradictory about this, is that we have imagined that something else happens here that is more in line with what a king should do. I think that often in our minds, when we imagine that Jesus says, forgive them for they do not know what they're doing, he is asking for acquittal, which is something a king would do, or pardon. That a king would have the power to legally acquit a person for their crimes. Or a king would have the power to pardon somebody for their crimes. But that is not what Jesus asks here. Jesus does not ask the Father to acquit them or to pardon them. Jesus asks a very specific thing. He asks the Father to forgive them. And forgiveness is something much different than acquittal or pardon. And the difference is this: acquittal or pardon allow you to let somebody go free for a crime they have done and never worry about them ever again. A judge can acquit a person and not care anything about them. They can have no legal standing that they can be punished for that crime any longer, but it does not mean that that judge has to like them in any way or see them ever again. And the same with pardon. Pardon is the way that you can remove the guilt of a crime from a person but not invest in them. That is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not removing the bad that somebody has done to you in a way that you just can ignore them for the rest of their life. Forgiveness is not motivated by removing legal guilt. Forgiveness is motivated by wanting to reconcile with the person who has wronged you. So when Jesus is on the cross and he does this very unkingly thing, it would think a king should say, they can go free. I can grant them that they don't have to be held accountable for this crime any longer, but I want nothing else to do with them in the future. They can go somewhere else. I can be over here and live my life with you, Father, in eternity, and they can be over here and live their life in the dust. But that's not what Jesus does. Jesus, when he's finally raised up, where everybody is looking at him, at this place called the skull, says, Father, let's forgive these people so that we can be reconciled with them. That this relationship can be fixed between us. And this kicks off a whole another set of events that in that context, when you think that Jesus is trying to restore the relationship, at the moment he is doing this, we get these images of contradictory things happening underneath of him. At that moment, they are casting lots or throwing dice or gambling to figure out what to do with his clothing. And there are leaders who have accused him of being the king of the Jews who are saying, if you are a king, you would come down. The irony being they're saying, if you were a king, you would come down instead of begging for forgiveness and the restoration of this relationship with us. And then even the guys next to him on the crosses get into an argument about what a king should behave like in this moment. Because one of them thinks that a king would never do what Jesus has just done, which is lower himself to such a weak position to say that I want to be restored to these people who have done me wrong. And the other one says, Jesus, that is where I know your kingship lies. Your kingship lies in being able to take the mantle of humility upon yourself. And regardless of what has happened in the days preceding this and it was happening to you right now, I know that because of the posture you have taken, you will be the king, and I want to be part of that kingdom. When we come to Christ the King Sunday, we also have to ask ourselves what we think it is that we hold most valuable in the person that we would call the king of our lives. And the king of our lives, we are given this image of one who doesn't protect himself from the courts, from one who allows himself to be abused and beaten, but also, and more importantly, the king of our lives is the one who does not wait for us to apologize, and is not the one that just acquits or pardons us. It is the one who forgives us, because the king of our lives wants to be reconciled to us. And we have a choice like the people around that cross that day, either to abuse and accuse Jesus of his unorthodox kingship by allowing himself to have all these things happen to him, and also to allow himself to lower himself to such a position where he would want to be reconciled with his abusers. Or we have the other position, like we see in the thief of the cross, to say, Jesus, I know that is why you are king. You are king because you want to be reconciled to us and to your abusers. It's a very hard thing to do. I mean, there's so many ways that we are programmed to think that kingship should be about strength, about having the power to say, yes, you are condemned, or yes, you're acquitted, and not have the power to say, I forgive you. We think that kingship means, I know what is right, and I am strong, and I will have my way. And Jesus says, I will let others have their way for now. We are programmed in so many ways to think that the image that Jesus gives us of kingship is not kingship at all. But that's not what we say, because we've already sang this morning to crown him with many crowns, and this is who we are crowning. And it is nobody else. It is the one who does all of the things that we would consider weak, but they are the very things that make him strong. And that is the ultimate contradiction and irony of the story of Jesus' passion. All of the things that we would think make a person less valuable and a weakling are actually the things that make Jesus King of all, King of kings and Lord of lords. Amen.